The Italians, they build some beautiful cars, don't they? Problem is, none of them are that affordable. You have Ferraris, you also have brands like Maserati here that make some stunningly beautiful cars that also sound amazing and deliver world-class performance. Now though, for 2014, there might be one that inches closer to what your wallet can afford. This is the 2014 Ghibli. We're gonna take a look at it and I'm gonna explain why it's an excellent value proposition. When you hear the name Maserati, obviously you're thinking of something that's gonna be very pretty looking, appealing to the eyes. The Ghibli is no exception here. With the aggressive front end, the cool tucked reverse grille, you've got the Trident badge. These wonderful headlamps are cut into the front end, the fascia, and these 3 spots right here mimic the portholes on the side. And we're not talking about Buick portholes. These are real deal Maserati portholes. Coming around to the side, you've got these gorgeous multi-spoke wheels. Then you move back and it's a traditional Maserati sedan like you expect after looking at the Quattro port for so many years. This is essentially a baby version of that car. It has a shorter wheelbase, it's shorter in length, and it weighs a little bit less. So it's visually pleasing to the eye like that car is, but it's in a more compact and more accessible package. Coming around to the back, it's a familiar rear end to fans of the brand. It's clearly a Maserati, quad exhaust outlets, good looking tail lamps. All in all, this is a very visually pleasing car, and it should be something that makes the brand proud. If you opt for a Ghibli, you've got 3 choices of engines. Well, really 2 here in the United States. The rest of the world will be able to get a diesel, which makes almost 450 pound-feet of torque. What we've got here in North America are 2 3-liter V6s with twin turbos. The base Ghibli makes about 330 horsepower, and it's paired with an 8-speed automatic gearbox from ZF Transmissions. This model is the Ghibli S with the Q4 all-wheel drive system. This one makes about 410 horsepower. It can get to 0 to 62 miles per hour in about 4.8 seconds, and it just sounds incredible. It's an engine that was designed by Maserati, but it's built by Ferrari. Put those 2 together, and you have a wonderful heart for the Ghibli. Sitting inside the Maserati Ghibli is as entertaining as it is to look at it from the outside. After all, this is a luxury car competing in the midsize segment. That means it's going to do battle with the Audi A6, the BMW 5 Series, and the Mercedes E-Class. And that means it's got its work cut out for it because the Germans have this segment down pat. Now, with the Italians, this is their first ever entry into this segment, so this car is a pretty big deal. But they've done a good job. These leather seats are supremely comfortable. The interior is well set out. It's definitely a driver's car. Easily you can see the gauges, and this car has kilometers because it's a Euro spec car. Additionally, on top of that, since there is a partnership with Fiat and Chrysler, what you have here is what Maserati calls Maserati Touch Control. But it's basically Uconnect. So it works well, it's easy to read, and it's responsive. When you click for the next song comes up right away. There's no delay. So it works wonderfully, and I'm glad they used this and didn't try to make their own bespoke system. Just use what works. Name it something Maserati related, and there you go. On top of that, you've got these great big paddles here to access the 8-speed gearbox, and you've got a suite of driver buttons down here to change the dynamics of the car. Speaking of changing the dynamics, hop in, let's go for a ride, and I'll show you what this means. Down here next to the leather-wrapped shift lever, there are a couple buttons. There's one to turn off traction control, which we're gonna leave on for now because we're not on a racetrack. There's a big M, which pops it into manual mode, even though you can do that from the stick itself. There's a button that says ICE, and it's not gonna drop bling from the ceiling. It puts the car into improved control and efficiency mode, which gives you more traction, eases up on the throttle response, makes the car more manageable in bad weather. We don't need that because we're in Southern California. This button is the sport button. Push that button, the bypass valves on the exhaust stay open, you get more noise, and it's a whole lot more fun. Then there's this button right here, which looks like a suspension damper because it is. This is a neat system because it actually works. You can feel a difference. Cruising down the highway, if you leave it out of sport mode, the car kind of floats down the road. Hit the button, put it into sport mode, and it actually gets much stiffer, and you can feel it. There are tons of systems out there that say they do this. Here in the Maserati Ghibli, you can actually feel it, and that's a huge deal. This means you can take the car from a great, comfortable highway cruiser with your family in it, kick them out, pop all the buttons down here into the right fun mode, stiffen the car up, and go hammer a canyon road, which is what we're gonna do. So the first thing you notice when you hop behind the wheel of the Maserati Ghibli is that exhaust note. I have it in sport, so the bypass valves are open, and that's the way you would have to drive this every day. I would almost push this button so hard it breaks into permanently on mode. Neighbors be damned. The engine sounds great, the throttle response is wonderful, and it mixes perfectly with the segment for what this car is competing in. I told you it's a mid-size luxury car, and it's a sporty one at that. On top of that, it has a little bit more style, actually a lot more style than the rest of the offerings out there. So if you want some more flash for your cash, you get this car. And you're getting a car that drives wonderfully. Steering feel is great. It has an all-wheel drive system in this Ghibli SQ4, but it's rear biased. In fact, from the standstill, 100% of the torque is sent to the back. Most all-wheel drive systems are almost the opposite, so it's clear they had the enthusiast in mind when they put this system together. When you're cruising these roads, it usually averages between 80 and 75% to the rear, the rest is going to the front, and it's making turn-in crisp and clean and making you feel like you really know what you're doing behind the wheel of this car. It is a system that's designed perfectly for what this car looks like on the outside, so it performs that way and you feel that way when you're sitting on the inside. And that's not always easily done with cars today, but Maserati managed to do it here. As good as it goes and turns, it also stops really well. It's got big Brembos at all four corners, and when you're pushing this thing through its paces on a twisty road, you want to make sure you can stop just as quickly as you can go. So at the very beginning of this, I told you that it's a wonderful value proposition, and you might be asking yourself why. I mean, a Maserati, it's got to be expensive. It is. The base price for the Maserati Ghibli is about $65,000, which seems pretty low for a Maserati. This car, the Ghibli SQ4, runs between 75 and 90 grand. Expensive, yes, but for what you're competing against, it kind of makes sense. It's priced accordingly for, you know, some of the higher trim specs from the German examples, but there's extra going on with the Maserati. There's that engine note. There's the level of comfort, which it's more comfortable than those German cars, no question. Then there's also that exterior styling, and I mean, I gotta be honest, there's the badge. You can't always say, hey, I got a Maserati in my garage. So there's something to be said for that, whether you like that or not. So if you're getting a car in this segment and you have a little bit extra cash to step up a notch, style-wise, performance-wise, all of that stuff, the Maserati Ghibli might be just the car for you. And yeah, you can actually put a Maserati in your life for under $100,000. There's a reason for that. Maserati is looking to expand their volume. To do that, they need a car like this. You can consider this an entry-level Maserati. I know at the price point it's insane to call anything entry-level, but that's what this is. Even though it's entry-level though, it doesn't skimp on any of the things you'd expect with a Maserati if you know what to expect from a Maserati, because people shopping here might not know what to expect. They just know that they're getting a great car for a great price.